Fernand, as we look ahead to the Harris event this afternoon, just how important is it for Harris to lay out her economic vision today?
Well, I think it's important because the economy was really the one issue that was stymieing Joe Biden when he was the Democratic nominee. Americans, despite the pretty strong economic indicators, the strong economic record by the Biden administration, weren't necessarily buying that. So not only the fact that you see Kamala Harris laser focusing on this issue, the fact that she's also undoubtedly a much better messenger at this point. She has the ability to communicate very effectively, very passionately. And I think her team sees if they can move the needle on the economy, and polls are starting to show now, Anna, that voters trust Kamala Harris slightly more than Joe Biden. That means that they're going to be able to grow their support. By contrast, you see a very undisciplined, chaotic Donald Trump who only really knows how to function in chaos. Yesterday, try and kind of knock him down a peg or two, really unable to reach that goal because Trump is what Trump is. He's a victim of insults. He likes that style, and that's going to be the approach that we're going to see for the next 30 or 60 days. He's not going to change.
And that's what he's saying. He's saying that out loud, that I'm going to do it my way. Congressman, as mentioned, the polling on the economy as an issue for voters is showing Trump ahead, but that gap is closing with Harris on the ticket. What should Republicans read from that?
Well, Anna, it just is another example of the fact that Donald Trump might be the most undisciplined presidential candidate in history, because you hear congressional Republicans, you hear political strategists. We know what his team is telling him. They're telling him to focus on the economy, inflation, and immigration. Those are the issues that could really propel Republicans to victory in 2024. But a reminder, Anna, those were the same issues that could have generated a big red wave for Republicans in 22, which a lot of people predicted. Why did that not materialize? In large part because Donald Trump decided to intervene in that 22 race and make it about the big lie about the 2020 election. That threw Republicans off message, and it really hurt their ability to make the gains that they were supposed to make that cycle. So we're saying the same thing over and over again. We're seeing it here. Donald Trump working as hard as he can to keep that coalition that rejected the MAGA movement in 18, 20, and 22 together to possibly defeat him again in 24.
Well, speaking of potential messaging issues, Congressman, Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, has been on the trail this week and has really been trying to highlight military issues, trying to connect with military families, with veterans. But then Trump says this.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead.
Congressman Curbelo, your reaction to that?
This, number one, what a horrible thing to say. Number two, this is exactly the type of statement, the type of conduct that turns off the swing voters in suburban America that defeated Trump 3 elections in a row, the MAGA movement, 18, 20, and 22. Again, Anna, this is Donald Trump being his own worst enemy, keeping that anti-Trump coalition together. A lot of people say, well, maybe he'll change course. This is who Donald Trump is. He hasn't changed in all these years, and I think it's unlikely to happen in the next couple months.
And not to mention, isn't he undermining the message of his own running mate, who can speak with, I guess, some gravitas on the issue, given his own experience in the military?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I mean, to think about that contrast with not just J.D. Vance, who he's undermining, but Tim Walz, any American who wore the uniform, any Gold Star parent who lost someone in combat. I mean, just repugnant comments by a repugnant person. Anna, I think the other thing that really needs to be stated here that Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand, the one advantage that he had in 2016 is what he was then, what I call a political Rorschach test candidate. A lot of voters justified their personal discomfort with him and his rhetoric by saying, well, yeah, at least he's a businessman. I think he's going to shake things up. I think he's going to do things a lot better. Voters have now seen the product. And as Congressman Curbelo says, The reaction to the product they saw in 2018, 2020, and 2022 was a rejection of that. So that's why Trump continuing to stay the course with this 2016 over-the-top approach. Not only is it going bad for him, I think it's going to cause a massive loss across the country, especially now with the new energized Harris-Walz ticket capturing the imagination of voters across the country.
Veterans, people without kids, postmenopausal women. Fernand, how many different groups has the GOP ticket collectively potentially alienated in the last few weeks?
All of them, all of them. That's why you see all of a sudden all of these groups mushrooming overnight. Veterans for Harris on Zoom, childless cat ladies for Harris on Zoom. All of these little groups, because of the constant 24-hour Death Star alienation campaign that the Trump-Vance ticket just delights in seeming to do. Again, that stuff may work on Fox News and conservative media. It doesn't play with non-Trump voters and non-Trump supporters.
Trump is also back to false election claims, trying to stir up doubts about election integrity. Congressman, new Republican-backed laws in states like Georgia seem tailor-made to block certification in the event of a Harris win. If Trump and his allies try to ignore or even overturn the election results again if they lose, are there enough establishment Republicans left to stop it?
I think they are, Anna. In Congress in 2020, we did see a lot of Republicans, not enough in my opinion, but a lot stand up and say, no, we're not going to embrace this lie. It does concern me that Mitch McConnell, while he will still be in Congress, is not going to be in a leadership position anymore, because he certainly did stand up to the big lie in a very meaningful way at an important time. But yes, I do believe that there are a sufficient number of Republicans who will stand up and say, no way, we're not going to do this. And I especially think, given the lessons from the past, right, and that ugly day, January 6, 2021, I think there are enough people who are going to say, we're not going to do that all over again. We're going to move forward as a country.
Former Congressman Carlos Curbelo and Fernand Amandi, thank you both. Nice to see you.